Engaging in the service of the Lord, an essential subject from Vinipedia. The senses are worth possessing when engaged in the service of the Lord. Actually, devotional service means engaging the senses in the service of the Lord. At the present moment our senses are not purified. Therefore our senses are engaged in the service of society, friendship, love, politics, sociology and so on. However, when the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, one attains bhakti, or devotional service. We have to therefore engage our body, mind and senses in the service of the Lord. An intelligent person always thinks of different ways to serve the Lord. When we surrender to the Lord, we become very dear to Him and He personally takes care of us. Srila Prabhupada's books, lectures, conversations and letters offer a comprehensive presentation of this essential subject as seen in the Vinaya engaging in the service of the Lord category. An introduction from his books is given below in the following 10 quotes. Quotes from Srila Prabhupada's books. A devotee should always aspire to live in the association of advanced devotees and engage in the service of the Lord through the Parampar system. One should serve the mission of our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the instructions of the great Gosvamis of Vindivana. This is called Tidarakara Sevi. While serving the lotus feet of the Gosvamis, one should live in the association of devotees, Bhakta Sain Visa. This is the business of a devotee. A devotee should not aspire for material profit or lament for material loss. R. Madbh Gavatam 6.15.1819. A Gosvam knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of HKA, or the supreme owner of the senses Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. Bhagavad Gita 6.26. A person who is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord is the emblem of all knowledge. Such a devotee of the Lord in full perfection of devotional service is also perfect by the qualification of the personality of Godhead. As such, the eightfold perfections of mystic power, a siddhi, constitute very little of his godly opulence. R. Madbh Gavatam 1.5. 6. A pure devotee always engages in the service of the Lord, taking shelter of his lotus feet, and therefore he has a direct connection with the saffron mercy particles that are strewn over the lotus feet of the Lord. Although when a pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice may resemble the sound of this material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. As soon as a sleeping living entity hears the powerful voice emanating from the mouth of a pure devotee, he immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord, although up until that moment he had forgotten everything. R. Madbh Gavatam 4.20. 25. The devotees engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord never accept the Asyaya Mukti, or merging in the rays of the Lord called the Brahmajayotar. The devotees can achieve not only liberation but any success in the realm of religiosity, economic development or sense gratification up to the standard of the demigods in the heavenly planets. But such a pure devotee as Uddhava refuses to accept all such facilities. A pure devotee wants simply to engage in the service of the Lord and does not consider his own personal benefit. R. Madbh Gavatam 3.4. 15. A pure devotee, whose mind is always engaged in the service of the Lord, can certainly appreciate the impermanence of this material world. Although such a devotee may be engaged in executing material activities, this stage is called Ansakti. As explained by RLAR Pagosvam, Ansaktasya Van Yathrama Payujata. A devotee is always unattached to material activities because in the liberated stage his mind is always fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. R. Madbh Gavatam 4.30. 23. Advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science, and therefore a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. Similarly, philosophical speculations should be utilized to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. Similarly, all other branches of knowledge should always be engaged in the service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also the same is affirmed. All knowledge not engaged in the service of the Lord is but nescience. Real utilization of advanced knowledge is to establish the glories of the Lord, and that is the real import. R. Madbh Gavatam 1.5. 22. One need not undergo severe penances for many thousands of years. One need only learn how to love Krishna and be always engaged in his service. Sivan Makhijivdosvayam Avasfarati Ada, BRS. 1.2.234. Then one can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. Instead of bringing the Lord here for some material purpose, to have a son or whatever else, if we go back home, back to Godhead, our real relationship with the Lord is revealed, and we eternally engage in our eternal relationship. Our Mad BH Gavatam 10.3.3738. If one is sincere, he is initiated, and this stage is called Bhajanakri. One then actually engages in the service of the Lord by regularly chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 16 rounds daily, and refraining from illicit sex, intoxicants, meat eating and gambling. By Bhajanakri one attains freedom from the contamination of materialistic life. He no longer goes to a restaurant or hotel to taste so-called palatable dishes made with meat and onions, nor does he care to smoke or drink tea or coffee. Nectar of Instruction 7. One who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or of his plenary expansions is considered to be transcendentally situated. One should also note that all the forms of Krishna are fully transcendental, blissful, full of knowledge and eternal. Such personalities of Godhead are omnipotent and omniscient, and they possess all transcendental qualities. So if one engages himself in the service of Krishna or his plenary expansions with unfailing determination, although these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, one can overcome them easily. Bhagavad Gita 14.26